If you are an operator on a typical manufacturing asset, if you like, a day in the life of, and to see how the overall equipment effectiveness actually affects that person and his asset. So let's take a situation, as I'm going to draw up here, is that, and to keep the arithmetic easy, let us assume that I'm working a 10-hour shift and that I'm the operator of this particular asset that has a production rate, right, of 100 items per hour. So I come in, switch the machine on, and 10 hours later, I've had the perfect shift, and I have produced 10 times 10, 1,000 on time, in full, perfect products. In other words, my overall equipment effectiveness is 100%. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But the reality is somewhat different. When I come in to take over from my colleague Andy, who's been on the previous shift, I like to set this machine up to my own style. I know there's an operating instruction and best practice routine somewhere stuffed away in the drawer, but I know what's best for this. So I do a bit of tweaking on this asset when I come in at the start and slightly reset it. And in the framework of the overall equipment effectiveness, that is called a startup loss. I also know that if we run it at the standard cycle time of 100 per hour, the finish gets corrupted and is just not fit for purpose, this machine. So I wind it down to run at 90 units per hour, not 100. By doing that, I know that I'm protecting the quality. So I'm actually running it at a reduced speed, which is one of the other 6 losses, in addition to startup losses that are referred to, that affect the availability, the performance rate, or the quality rate of this machine. And we're going along quite well, and suddenly I have to press the stop button and go inside the machine. I don't need a maintenance technician, by the way, but I just go in and jangle this pallet loader up and down because it gets jammed, and off we go again. We have a little startup loss, but you know, nothing much there, and that's called a minor stoppage. A minor stoppage doesn't require my maintenance colleague, Martin, to come and fix something, but causes me to interfere with the process. And that, and similar minor stops, I can tell you, happens at least 20 times a shift, if not more. And we're going along, and this motor, which to my knowledge has been making a very loud noise, suddenly starts to smell of burning and goes bang, and we have a breakdown. Not a nervous breakdown, but I tell you, it's beginning to feel like this for me, the operator, on this particular shift. So we suffer a breakdown, and that requires me to go and get Martin to come and fix it. Martin comes along, has a look at the motor that's burnt out, he goes down to stores, he comes back to recheck the part number because there's nothing in stores, because the part number on the motor has actually been damaged by a hammer at some point in the past. Anyway, he comes back, he goes down, and eventually he comes back, and we restart the operation again. Now, the point is that that breakdown was unplanned, and also in here, because we've had to completely clear out the system in order to repair that breakdown, we've actually produced quite a lot of scrap in there that has to be cleaned out of the system. So far, we've got 5 classic losses. We've got breakdowns that affect availability. We've got running at reduced speed and minor stops that affect the performance rate when we're running, and we get startup losses every time we get a breakdown, so there's another startup loss there, every time we get a minor stop, and we produce scrap as well as that startup loss. And then to complete it all, the boss comes down towards the end of the shift and says, "Stop this job, Peter, it's time to do a changeover. We've got this customer telling us that if we don't deliver it, that's the end of it." So we have a changeover. And I think to myself, thank God it's time for me to go home, because I have not had a hassle-free shift. We've only produced production in there, right, in these parts here. So my overall equipment effectiveness, instead of producing 1,000 right first time items, this green bit says we've only produced 600 right first time items. You don't need to tell me through the fancy arithmetic that our OE is 60%. I know it is. I also know that I work a 5-day week here, so it's saying that me and my machine is only effective for 3 days of the week. If through this TPM process, this 11-step process that we've talked about, if we can use that, then if we could get our overall equipment effectiveness up to 80% by tackling all of these 6 types of losses, if we could get it to 80%, I'd be effective for 4 days of the week. I wouldn't have a hassle-free shift, but I'd be well on the way.